The stars over Earth had always been a place of wonder, a canvas of infinite possibilities. But now that canvas was darkened by fear. The United Earth Coalition had been monitoring unusual signals for weeks, strange movements at the edge of the solar system. At first, scientists thought it was a natural phenomenon, an asteroid cluster or a distant storm. But as the readings grew sharper, clearer, and more coordinated, it became undeniable they were not alone. Commander Elias Kane stood on the bridge of the flagship Aurora, staring at the holographic projection of the approaching fleet. Hundreds of alien ships, sleek and metallic, moved in formation unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Their engines glowed with a cold, blue light, and every movement was precise, as if they operated not as individuals but as parts of a single mind. Elias felt the first stirrings of unease, but beneath it was something stronger: determination. "Status report," Elias said, his voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Mara Chen, the ship's tactical officer, looked up from the glowing console. "They are closing in fast, Commander. At this speed, they'll reach Mars orbit in less than 12 hours. Our fleet is ready, but we are outnumbered nearly 5-1. Elias's jaw tightened. "Numbers mean nothing if we fight smart. Humanity has survived worse. We adapt, we improvise. That's what makes us dangerous." Mara hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir. I just hope our unpredictability will be enough." Elias allowed himself a small, grim smile. "That's exactly why it will be enough." Across the fleet, humans were preparing for the battle of their lives. Engineers in the shipyards worked tirelessly, modifying older warships with whatever technology they could scavenge. Scientists developed improvised weapons, combining energy pulses and conventional missiles in ways that had never been tested. Civilians volunteered to assist, providing logistics, repairs, and even piloting support drones. Humanity was coming together in a way that had not been seen in centuries. As the alien fleet drew closer, Earth's population watched from orbiting stations and satellites. Fear was everywhere, but so was awe. News feeds were filled with messages of hope and defiance. "We are human. We will fight. We will survive." Elias turned his attention back to the tactical display. The alien ships were not just advanced. They were precise. Every movement was coordinated, as if some unseen intelligence predicted every human maneuver. Their weapons glowed with an energy that could slice through steel like paper. For a moment, Elias felt the weight of the odds against them, but then he reminded himself of what humans were capable of. "We don't have to match them ship for ship," Elias said aloud. "We just have to be smarter, faster, and braver. That's all it takes." The first shots were fired as the alien fleet entered Mars orbit. The human fleet, though smaller, was ready. Missiles streaked across the void, followed by energy pulses that lit up the darkness like fireworks. The aliens responded instantly, their shields glowing to absorb the attacks. Humans' weapons had to adapt on the fly. Engineers on every ship recalibrated in real time. Lieutenant Chen's voice was tense. "They're anticipating our moves, Commander. They're learning from every strike." Elias nodded. "Then we give them something new, something they can't predict." The Aurora launched a series of drones, tiny and fast, carrying decoy signals that mimicked human ship signatures. The alien ships faltered for the first time, redirecting energy to track the false targets. This created small gaps in their formation, which human fighters exploited. Small squadrons darted through the gaps, striking critical points on the alien fleet. It was chaotic, loud, and terrifying. Explosions lit up the blackness of space, and reports of destroyed ships flashed across the consoles. Yet in the midst of the chaos, Elias noticed something remarkable. Humans were not panicking. Every crew member on every ship seemed to understand instinctively what needed to be done. They improvised, they adapted, and above all, they refused to surrender. Hours passed like minutes. The battle raged above Mars, drawing closer to the asteroid belt where human strategists hoped to use the terrain to their advantage. Elias issued orders with precision, guiding squadrons into ambush points, setting traps, and constantly testing the alien responses. The humans were outnumbered, yes, but their unpredictability was a weapon as sharp as any missile or energy beam. Suddenly, an alarm blared. "Incoming strike!" Vector 34. The human fleet scattered. A massive alien ship, far larger than the others, had broken formation and was aiming straight for the Aurora. Elias grabbed the command console. Evasive maneuvers. Full power to the shields. "All fighters intercept!" The bridge shook as energy blasts slammed against the hull. Lights flickered, alarms screamed, and the crew held their positions, trained for moments like this. The alien ship's attack was precise, but humans had something it did not: creativity. Fighter pilots weaved through the barrage, drawing the alien fire away. Drones flitted around the massive ship, confusing its targeting systems. Elias gave the order. "Now fire everything we have." Missiles, energy pulses, and even experimental weapons struck the alien vessel simultaneously. There was a blinding flash, followed by silence. Then the massive ship broke apart, drifting like a wounded giant through the void. Humanity had scored its first major victory. The fleet cheered, but Elias did not. He knew the battle was far from over. The alien fleet was massive, and this was just the beginning. Yet for the first time he felt something surge inside him. Pride. Not just in himself, but in humanity. "They'll remember this," Elias said quietly. "They'll remember that humans are dangerous because we don't just fight. We think, we adapt. We survive." Lieutenant Chen looked at him, exhausted but smiling. "And they'll hate us for it." Elias allowed himself a chuckle. "Good, let them hate us. Let them fear what we can do and push to the edge." As night fell on Mars, the human fleet regrouped. Ships were damaged, lives were lost, but the spirit of humanity burned brighter than any star. The aliens had expected easy prey, but they had underestimated something far stronger than technology or numbers: the human will to survive. Back on Earth, news reports broadcast the first images from the front lines. Civilians stared at the screen, some crying, some cheering, but all of them united in a single thought: humanity would not go quietly. Across the globe, volunteers stepped forward. Scientists worked late into the night, and engineers found new ways to support the fleet. Every human in every corner of the world became part of the fight. Elias stood alone on the Aurora's observation deck, staring at the distant alien ships regrouping near the asteroid belt. The stars were silent witnesses to the chaos below, but he knew that silence would not last. Humanity had made its mark. They had fought with courage and ingenuity, and they had survived the first test. But the commander also knew the truth that weighed heavier than any victory: the aliens would come back. They always did, and next time the cost could be far higher. Yet Elias did not despair. Humans had a way of rising to the occasion, of finding strength where none seemed to exist. They were unpredictable, adaptable, and relentless. And as long as humanity refused to bow, there was hope. The stars, once a place of wonder, had become a battlefield, and humanity had just announced, without words, that it would fight for every inch of it. No one on the fleet slept that night. Not because of fear alone, but because something had changed. Humans had glimpsed the vastness of the threat, and also the vastness of their own courage. They had won the first battle, yes, but the war was just beginning, and the stars had never looked so wide, so dark, and so full of possibilities. Elias finally allowed himself to sit. He closed his eyes, but sleep did not come. Not yet. There was too much to plan, too much to anticipate. And somewhere, deep in the silent expanse of space, the alien fleet was watching, learning, and preparing to strike again. Humanity had survived the first night, but the commander knew one thing with certainty: the universe had just seen what humans could do, and it would never underestimate them again. The silence after the first battle was uneasy. Humans had won, yes, but the alien fleet remained a looming threat. Commander Elias Kane knew the victory was only temporary. The aliens were unlike any enemy humans had faced before. They adapted, calculated, and struck without warning. To survive, humanity would need more than courage. It would need creativity, cunning, and the willingness to do what the aliens could not imagine. Elias convened a meeting with his top officers in the war room of the Aurora. Holographic maps of the solar system floated above the table, dotted with markers for human outposts, colonies, and the enemy fleet's last known positions. "Make no mistake," Elias began, his voice steady. "They are not invincible. They are predictable in one way. They expect us to play by the rules. That is where we win." Lieutenant Mara Chen leaned forward. "Rules? We have no rules against improvisation, Commander. That's what got us through Mars." Elias nodded. "Exactly. But improvisation isn't enough. We need to be dangerous in ways they can't anticipate. Every colony, every ship, every civilian can contribute, and they will. We fight smarter, not just harder." Outside the fleet, human engineers worked at an incredible pace. Mines were converted into defensive stations. Cargo ships became armed transports. Even experimental technology, untested and unpredictable, was pushed into service. Humanity's greatest weapon was not their ships or lasers, it was their ingenuity. The first test came near the asteroid belt. The aliens advanced cautiously this time, wary after their loss near Mars. They did not expect the humans to use the dense field of asteroids as a trap, but Elias had anticipated this. "Prepare the drones," he ordered. "We'll make them chase shadows." Hundreds of small, fast drones launched into space, emitting signals that mimicked the fleet's warships. The alien sensors immediately locked onto them, mistaking them for the human fleet. Meanwhile, human fighters weaved through the asteroid field, attacking from unexpected angles. Explosions lit up the darkness as the aliens struggled to keep formation. Elias watched the display, tension tightening his chest. "Now target their weak points. Avoid direct confrontation. We strike and we vanish." The alien ships reacted with astonishing speed, but it was not enough. Humans moved unpredictably, exploiting gaps and mistakes in the alien formations. The aliens began to understand something frightening. Humans were not predictable. They could not be calculated with logic alone. Meanwhile, back on Earth, civilians played a crucial role. Engineers in underground factories modified old satellites into remote-controlled weapons. Scientists devised energy pulses that could disrupt alien shields for brief, critical moments. Even students and volunteers operated communication relays, providing real-time intelligence from orbiting stations. Humanity was mobilized in ways the aliens could never comprehend. "Commander," Mara said, pointing at the holographic map, "they're starting to spread their fleet. Looks like they're trying to flank us." Elias rubbed his temples. "Let them. We'll make them think they've succeeded. Then we hit them where it hurts." The humans' counterattack was audacious. Using decoy transmissions and improvised maneuvers, the fleet lured the aliens into narrow asteroid corridors. Explosives hidden on asteroids detonated in precise patterns, forcing the alien ships to break formation. Human fighters struck from multiple directions, taking advantage of confusion. It was chaotic, intense, and terrifying. Ships darted through the void. Missiles streaked past, and energy beams lit up the darkness. Yet the human fleet remained coordinated, their unpredictability working as a weapon against an enemy who relied on precision and predictability. In the heat of the battle, Elias noticed something extraordinary. Civilians from a mining colony had remotely piloted drones that destroyed a group of alien scouts. Their ingenuity had saved an entire squadron of human fighters. He smiled, realizing that humanity's strength was not just in training or technology. It was in resourcefulness and the willingness of every individual to contribute. Hours passed, and the aliens were forced to retreat. Their formation was broken and their losses were mounting. They regrouped in orbit around a distant asteroid, recalibrating and analyzing human tactics. For the first time, they seemed cautious, almost fearful. They had faced humans before, but never a species so unpredictable, so determined, and so willing to bend every rule in the fight for survival. Elias gathered his officers again. "They think they understand us," he said. "They don't, and they never will. Humanity does not follow rules. We make our own rules and we break them if necessary, but the victory was bittersweet." Reports came in of casualties from the improvised tactics. Some colonies had been damaged in the process, and civilians had been caught in the crossfire. Elias felt a heavy weight on his shoulders. Every victory came with a cost, and while humans could adapt and survive, the moral burden was becoming more visible. Despite the fear and the cost, the humans pressed on. Every loss was studied, every strategy analyzed, and every weakness corrected. The aliens had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, and they would continue to do so. The next challenge was even more daring. Elias proposed a strike on an alien supply convoy near the outer rim of the solar system. It was risky. The convoy was heavily guarded, and failure could mean disaster, but humanity thrived on risk. They adapted. They improvised. The fleet moved silently, using stealth techniques that had been perfected in secrecy. Human engineers had developed cloaking devices for smaller ships, and drones carried decoy signals to mask the fleet's approach. When the humans finally struck, it was like lightning in the dark. The alien convoy had no chance. Their supplies were destroyed, and their morale was shaken. As the fleet regrouped, Elias allowed himself a moment to reflect. Humanity had turned fear into strategy, disadvantage into opportunity. They had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, creativity, courage, and unity could triumph. Yet he also knew the fight was far from over. The aliens would adapt, they would learn, and humanity would have to evolve even faster to stay ahead. In the quiet moments between battles, Elias walked the decks of the Aurora. He saw the determination in the eyes of the crew, the exhaustion on their faces, and the unwavering belief that humanity could survive anything. Civilians worked alongside soldiers, engineers alongside scientists, and everyone contributed to a single goal: survival and victory. "Do you think we can really win this war?" Mara asked quietly, following him. Elias looked out at the stars, dark and infinite. "Win, perhaps, but it won't be easy, and it won't be clean. Humanity has a way of surprising everyone, even itself. That is our greatest weapon, and our heaviest burden." As night fell across Earth and its colonies, the fleet remained on alert. Scouts patrolled the edges of the solar system, looking for any sign of the alien armada. Every human was on edge, yet every human was ready. Humanity had survived the first encounters, and they had done so not by following rules, but by creating their own path in the darkness. The aliens, for the first time, realized that humans were unpredictable, relentless, and dangerous. They had underestimated a species that could turn fear into strategy, disadvantage into opportunity, and survival into art. Elias returned to the bridge, looking at the holographic map of the solar system. Every dot represented a human ship, a colony, or a volunteer station. Humanity was not just fighting, it was living, learning, and preparing for the next strike. "Tomorrow we hit them again," he said softly, "and the day after, and the day after that. We fight until we cannot fight anymore. That is who we are." Mara nodded, understanding the weight of his words. "And they'll never know what to expect." Elias smiled grimly. "Exactly. That is why humanity survives. That is why we endure. And that is why, no matter what comes, we will never stop fighting." The stars were silent witnesses to the chaos below, but humanity's light burned brighter than ever. Ingenious, courageous, unpredictable, and united, humans had become a force the universe could no longer ignore. And as long as they continued to adapt, to fight, and to survive, no enemy could ever truly defeat them. The first victories were behind them, but the war was only beginning, and the galaxy was about to learn just how dangerous humanity could be. The alien fleet had retreated beyond the asteroid belt, but their presence was far from gone. Humanity had won skirmishes, surprised the enemy, and proven that they were unpredictable, but victory came with a cost. Human ships had been damaged, civilians had been affected, and the psychological toll of war was beginning to show. Commander Elias Kane knew the next step would define the war and test the very soul of humanity. In the war room of the Aurora, Elias studied the holographic map of the outer solar system. The aliens had regrouped near a dense nebula, likely using it as a shield to recover and resupply. Intelligence suggested that the heart of their supply line lay there, a critical convoy carrying weapons, fuel, and command units. Destroying it could cripple the alien fleet, possibly forcing a surrender. Lieutenant Mara Chen frowned. "It's heavily guarded, Commander. The risk is enormous. If we fail—" Elias cut her off gently. "We won't fail. But you're right, the cost will be high. That is the nature of this war. Humanity has never survived without risk, and sometimes we must make choices we wish we didn't have to make." The plan was audacious. They would strike deep into alien territory, relying on speed, deception, and human creativity. Every fleet commander and officer understood the danger, yet they followed Elias's lead. Fear existed, yes, but so did courage, resolve, and a shared belief that humanity must survive at any cost. The fleet departed in silence, moving swiftly toward the nebula. Human engineers had designed cloaking devices for smaller ships and drones that emitted decoy signals. Fighter squadrons carried experimental weapons, and every vessel had contingency plans. Humanity had learned that predictable tactics would be defeated. Only ingenuity could win the day. When the fleet emerged near the alien supply lines, the nebula was a swirling, glowing mass of gas and debris. The aliens had positioned their ships to create a near-impenetrable wall. Elias observed the formation and realized the only way to break through was through a combination of distraction and precision strikes. "Deploy the decoys," Elias ordered. "Draw them away from the convoy." Hundreds of drones launched into the nebula, mimicking the signatures of human warships. The alien fleet reacted immediately, redirecting energy toward the decoys. Small fighter squadrons darted through the gaps, targeting supply ships and command units. Explosions lit the nebula like stars, and the human fleet moved with a precision that was chaotic only to the alien eyes. In the midst of the chaos, a massive alien warship targeted the Aurora. Mara Chen's voice rang out over the bridge. "Incoming strike! Shields at 50%. Elias's hand moved to the control panel. "Divert power to shields. All fighters, intercept!" The ship shook as energy beams slammed into the hull, but the crew stayed focused. Human ingenuity turned the tide once again. Drones maneuvered in and out, confusing alien targeting systems. Fighter pilots executed daring maneuvers, striking at critical points of the massive ship. Then experimental weapons designed to disrupt alien shields activated. The enemy warship faltered, giving the humans the advantage. By the time the convoy was destroyed, the nebula glowed with fires and explosions. Humans had struck a decisive blow, but the victory was bittersweet. The destruction had been extensive. Alien cargo ships filled with fuel and weaponry had exploded in massive blasts, and collateral damage was unavoidable. Elias walked the deck after the battle, his steps slow, his mind heavy. He saw the crew's exhaustion, the civilians who had risked everything and the cost of the choices they had made. "We survived," he whispered, "but at what price?" Mara joined him, silent for a moment before speaking. "The fleet has weakened, yes. But the enemy, they'll remember what humans are capable of. They'll fear us," Elias nodded. "Fear? Yes, that was part of it. Humans had fought with courage, with ingenuity, and with a willingness to make hard choices. That combination, the creativity, the courage, the moral complexity, was something the aliens could not anticipate. Humans had won because they were human, and that fact was terrifying. Across the fleet, celebrations were muted. There was no shouting, no loud cheers. The crew knew that the war was far from over. Every victory carried weight, and every action left a mark on the soul. Engineers repaired ships, medical teams treated the wounded, and commanders analyzed the battle to learn from it. Humanity's strength was in learning, adapting, and preparing for what was next. Meanwhile, intelligence reports confirmed the damage to the alien supply lines. The enemy fleet was forced to regroup farther away, buying humans precious time. Colonies breathed a little easier and morale improved slightly. But Elias reminded everyone that survival depended on vigilance. The aliens were not defeated, only delayed. In private, Elias reviewed the battle logs. He saw the ingenuity of his people, civilian-operated drones that had turned the tide, engineers who improvised on the spot, and pilots who had taken unimaginable risks. Humanity had once again proven that their greatest weapon was not their technology or numbers. It was their ability to adapt, think and act in ways that no other species could predict. Yet, he also saw the moral cost. The destruction of the convoy had been massive. While the aliens were a threat, there were still lives affected, and the consequences of human tactics weighed heavily on him. Elias realized that the very thing that made humans strong, their creativity, their adaptability, could also make them frightening. They had won, but they had glimpsed what humanity could do when survival demanded it. As the fleet moved back toward friendly space, Elias gathered his officers once more. "This battle showed us two things," he said. "One, humans are capable of incredible ingenuity and courage. Two, we are capable of things that even we must reflect on. We won today, but humanity's strength comes with a responsibility we cannot ignore." Mara spoke quietly. "Do you ever wonder if we've gone too far?" Elias looked at her, eyes distant. "Perhaps, but in war there are no easy answers. We fight to survive, and sometimes survival requires decisions we do not take lightly. Humanity is strong, yes, but strength comes with a price, and we must be ready to bear it." The fleet returned to a quieter sector of space to regroup and repair. Humans had learned that predictability was a weakness and unpredictability was a weapon. Every colony, every pilot, every civilian was part of a system that relied on creativity, ingenuity, and courage. They had turned disadvantage into opportunity, weakness into strength, and fear into a tool for survival. And yet, none of them slept easily that night. Victory was theirs, yes, but the reality of what they had done, The scale of the destruction, the moral weight, the sheer force of human adaptability haunted every mind. Humans had survived because they had been willing to do what no other species could. That was their greatest strength and their heaviest burden. Elias stood on the Aurora's observation deck, staring at the stars. The nebula where the battle had raged was now a distant memory, but the lessons remained. Humanity could adapt, innovate, and survive against impossible odds. They could strike, retreat, and strike again with creativity and courage. They could win, but in doing so they had glimpsed the darker side of their potential. Mara joined him silently. "We're changing," she said softly, "not just as soldiers but as a species. Humans are different now." Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, and the universe will see it. Humans are dangerous, not because we are cruel, but because we are clever, unpredictable, and relentless. That is why we survive. That is why we endure." The stars were quiet witnesses to the chaos below, but humanity's presence burned brighter than any light in the galaxy. They had turned fear into strategy, improvisation into a weapon, and courage into survival. Every battle taught them something new. Every risk made them stronger, and every victory, no matter how morally complex, reminded the universe that humans could not be predicted and could not be defeated easily. As the fleet sailed back toward Earth's outer colonies, Elias made a silent vow. Humanity would continue to fight, to adapt, and to survive. They would face every challenge, meet every enemy, and overcome every obstacle. But he also knew that the cost of victory would continue to weigh on them. Every human action left a mark, on the universe, on their enemies, and on themselves. The turning point had arrived. Humanity had proven that they could win against impossible odds, but they had also seen what they were capable of when survival demanded it. And none of them would forget it. Not for a moment, not for a long time. The war was far from over. But humans were ready. They had adapted, evolved, and become something the galaxy could never ignore. And though victory carried a heavy weight, it also carried a truth that would define humanity forever. They were clever, resilient, and unstoppable when pushed to the edge. The human fleet moved into the heart of the alien armada. After weeks of skirmishes, strategic strikes, and unpredictable tactics, the aliens had been forced to regroup near a distant star system. Intelligence reports indicated their central command ship was vulnerable, and for the first time, humanity had a clear chance to deliver a decisive blow. Commander Elias Kane stood on the bridge of the Aurora, his eyes scanning the holographic display. The fleet was ready, every ship repaired and armed, every squadron trained to precision. Yet even with preparation, the stakes had never been higher. A single mistake could cost thousands of human lives, and yet inaction was not an option. "We hit them hard and we hit them fast," Elias said, his voice calm but firm. "Every ship, every drone, every fighter must play its part. Humanity is strong, yes, but strength is meaningless without courage." Lieutenant Mara Chen nodded. "We've prepared for every scenario, Commander. But this is the biggest risk yet. Are we ready for what comes next?" Elias's gaze remained steady. "We are humans. That is enough." The fleet advanced. The alien armada, massive and imposing, seemed endless. Their ships formed layers of defense, energy shields glowing in ominous blue hues. But the humans had learned that predictability was their enemy, and ingenuity their greatest weapon. "Deploy the drones," Elias ordered. "All decoys, all signals. Make them think we are scattered. Then we strike together." Hundreds of small drones flitted into space, creating false targets and confusing the alien sensors. Fighter squadrons swooped in from multiple directions, weaving between massive alien vessels. Explosions rippled across the battlefield as energy beams tore through space, hitting shields, hulls, and support ships. Elias watched the display, his mind analyzing every move. Humans were not the strongest in technology or numbers, but they were clever, unpredictable, and relentless. The alien fleet, once confident and precise, was now in disarray. "Commander," Mara said, pointing at a massive alien battleship, "the central command is exposed. We can take it out if we coordinate perfectly." Elias's jaw tightened. "Then we do it. All squadrons, focus fire. This is the moment humanity shows its full strength." The attack began. Fighters swarmed the battleship, striking critical points with precision. Drones disabled shields and experimental weapons pierced armor once thought impenetrable. Explosions lit the void, a terrifying and brilliant display of human ingenuity and courage. But with victory came horror. The alien command ship exploded in a massive fireball, sending debris across the battlefield. Human pilots dodged and weaved, but not all were safe. Several ships were destroyed by the blast, and casualties were high. The horror of war became tangible. Humans had won, but the cost was undeniable. Elias walked the Aurora's deck, feeling the weight of the destruction. Crew members were exhausted, wounded, and shaken. The cost of victory pressed heavily on his shoulders. Humanity had triumphed, yes, but the scale of what they had done, the sheer force and destructiveness of their tactics, was staggering. Reports came in from the fleet. Entire alien squadrons had been destroyed. Supply lines had been cut. The central command was obliterated. The alien armada, once confident and terrifying, was in full retreat. Humanity had won a decisive, undeniable victory. Yet even in victory, the crew was uneasy. The scale of destruction was enormous. Civilians in distant colonies had witnessed the attacks, and some had been affected by debris or fallout. The humans had survived, yes, but at what cost? Elias knew that the universe had seen the full extent of human capability, and it was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Mara approached him quietly. "We won. The fleet is safe, but none of us feels like celebrating." Elias nodded. "We have proven something today. Humanity is clever, adaptable, and relentless. But we have also seen what we are capable of when survival demands it. That is the part that keeps us awake at night." Across the fleet, humans tended to the wounded, repaired ships, and organized supply lines. Engineers worked tirelessly. Civilians volunteered, and scientists assessed alien technology recovered from the battlefield. Humanity's resilience was evident, not just in their ability to fight, but in their determination to rebuild, recover, and learn. The alien survivors were retreating into uncharted space, likely to lick their wounds and reconsider their strategies. Humanity had won, but the war had revealed something deeper. When pushed to the edge, humans were capable of acts that were terrifying in their ingenuity and ruthlessness. It was a truth the galaxy would soon learn. Elias wandered through the aftermath. He saw destroyed ships, the remnants of alien technology, and the exhausted faces of his crew. Each victory had come with a price, and every human action had consequences. The moral complexity of war weighed heavily on him, but he also knew that humanity had survived because they were clever, adaptable, and willing to make hard decisions. Back on Earth, broadcasts told of the human victory, civilians cheered, governments celebrated, and colonies sent messages of congratulations. But even as humanity rejoiced, there was an underlying tension. Everyone understood the truth. The humans had won, yes, but the methods they had used were a glimpse of what humanity could do when survival demanded it. Elias recorded a message for the fleet. "Today, humanity has shown the galaxy what it means to survive. We have won battles that seemed impossible, but we have also seen what we are capable of when cornered. Victory is ours, but the weight of our actions will remain with us. We must remember our humanity even as we embrace our strength." Mara joined him on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Do you think the universe will ever forgive us?" Elias smiled faintly. "Forgive us? Perhaps not. But fear us, respect us, and remember us, that is enough. Humanity survives because we are clever, unpredictable, and relentless. That is who we are. That is what we must never forget." The stars were silent, watching as the human fleet sailed through the aftermath of war. Humanity had achieved the impossible, yet the memory of the destruction, the moral weight of their choices, and the sheer power they had unleashed lingered. No one would sleep easily after witnessing the full extent of what humans were capable of. In the quiet moments that followed, Elias reflected on the duality of humanity. They were capable of great heroism, ingenuity, and bravery. But they were also capable of terrifying acts when pushed to survive. That duality, that unpredictability, was humanity's greatest strength and its heaviest burden. The fleet began its slow journey back to friendly space. Ships were repaired, supplies were restocked, and crew members took long-needed rests. Humans had won, but the victory was not without cost. The universe had seen the full power of human determination, creativity, and ruthlessness. Elias returned to his cabin, exhausted but contemplative. He thought of every ship, every civilian, every pilot, and every engineer who had contributed to the victory. Humanity had proven that they could survive against impossible odds. But he also knew that the moral weight of their choices would never be forgotten. As he looked out at the stars, Elias whispered to himself, "We are human. We fight, we survive, and the universe will never forget what we have done." The fleet moved silently through the void. Humanity had won the battle, the aliens had retreated, and the solar system was safe, for now. But the memory of the scale of destruction, the ingenuity required to survive, and the moral complexity of their actions lingered. Humanity had triumphed, but none of them would sleep easily. The stars were witnesses to humanity's victory. Brilliant, terrifying, and unstoppable, humans had proven that they could survive anything, and though the cost was heavy, the lesson was clear. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. Elias stood on the observation deck one last time before rest, looking at the calm, distant stars. "Victory is ours," he said quietly, "but it comes with a price. We have survived. We have won. And we have seen what humanity is capable of. That knowledge will haunt us, and it should. Because it is proof of who we truly are. Humanity had won, yes, but they had also seen themselves. And what they saw was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. They had survived. They had triumphed. But the shadow of their own potential, the darkness of their ingenuity in war, would follow them forever. The war was over, at least for now. The alien fleet had retreated beyond the edge of known space, their command structure shattered, their supply lines destroyed, and their morale broken. Humanity had survived, had won, and had proven to the galaxy that they were clever, adaptable, and unstoppable when cornered. Yet victory did not feel like celebration. Commander Elias Kane walked along the corridors of the Aurora, seeing the exhausted faces of his crew. Pilots, engineers, and civilians alike moved quietly, tending to the wounded, repairing ships, or simply sitting in silence. The weight of what they had done hung over everyone like a shadow. Lieutenant Mara Chen joined him on the observation deck. The stars stretched infinitely before them, calm and indifferent to the chaos humans had endured. "We won," she said softly, "but it doesn't feel like it, does it?" Elias shook his head. "Victory has a cost. We survived because we were clever, because we adapted, because we did what no other species could do. But every choice we made, every strike we delivered carries a mark. The universe saw what humans are capable of, not just our courage, but our ruthlessness when survival demands it." Mara's eyes scanned the dark expanse. "Do you think the galaxy will ever forgive us?" Elias smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and sorrow. "Forgiveness isn't necessary. Fear, respect, caution, those will follow naturally. Humanity doesn't need to be forgiven. We need to survive, and the galaxy now knows we can." Back on Earth, colonies across the solar system began the slow process of rebuilding. Cities that had been damaged by alien attacks or human countermeasures were repaired, sometimes stronger than before. Engineers reverse-engineered alien technology. Scientists studied new energy sources, and civilians helped in every way they could. Humanity had endured countless trials, but the war had unified them in a way that history had never recorded. In the outer colonies, survivors told stories of courage and ingenuity. Miners had piloted drones to defend towns. Students had repaired communication arrays under fire. Civilians had invented new ways to supply the fleet. Humans had survived because every individual, no matter their skill or station, had contributed to the collective effort. Yet, among the triumph, there was reflection. Commander Elias Kane addressed the United Earth Council in a recorded message. His tone was somber, measured but proud. "Humanity has survived the greatest threat we have ever faced. We have fought with courage, with ingenuity, and with an unwavering will to endure. Our victories were hard-won and our losses were profound. We have seen the consequences of our actions, the lives affected, the choices we had to make, and the power we wield when cornered. Let us remember that power carries responsibility. Let us ensure that our strength is tempered with wisdom." The message was broadcast across Earth and its colonies. Citizens listened with awe, pride, and a quiet understanding that survival had never been simple. Humans had proven their value to the galaxy, but they had also glimpsed the darker side of their potential. In the months that followed, humanity rebuilt its fleet, repaired its colonies, and strengthened its defenses. Alien technology was integrated into human systems, improving efficiency, speed, and adaptability. Humans had learned from every encounter, every strike, every decision. They were stronger, smarter, and more prepared than ever before. Yet Elias never forgot the human cost nor the moral weight of their actions. He walked the decks of the Aurora, reflecting on the crew's bravery and the choices they had made. They had survived impossible odds, yes, but they had also seen the full extent of human potential when pushed to extremes. That knowledge would not fade. It would shape humanity's future. In private moments, crew members talked about what they had seen. Pilots remembered the fear and adrenaline of battle. Engineers recalled moments of brilliant improvisation. Civilians remembered their contributions and the danger they faced. Every human had a story. Every story a lesson. Survival required courage, ingenuity, and moral reflection. Elias looked at Mara one evening on the observation deck. "Do you ever think we've changed? Not just as soldiers, but as a species?" Mara nodded slowly. "Yes, we're not just clever or adaptable anymore. We've seen what humans can do when survival demands it, and it changes how we see ourselves." Elias sighed, a mixture of pride and unease. "We are stronger, yes, but we must never forget the weight of our choices. That is what separates us from the monsters we fight against. Cleverness without conscience is dangerous. Cleverness with courage and reflection, that is humanity." Across the galaxy, reports of humanity's victories began to spread. Other species observed the humans with a mixture of fear and respect. They had never seen a species so unpredictable, so capable of combining creativity, courage, and calculated risk. Humans had turned disadvantages into strengths, weakness into opportunity, and fear into a weapon. Yet for humans themselves, the memory of what they had done lingered. The galaxy knew that humanity was formidable, and humans themselves knew what it had taken to survive. That awareness created a tension that could not be ignored, the knowledge of one's own capability and the responsibility that came with it. In the quiet moments, Elias reflected on the duality of humanity. They were capable of heroism, ingenuity, and sacrifice, but they were also capable of ruthless efficiency, improvisation and destruction, and acts that haunted the conscience. That duality was both their greatest strength and their heaviest burden. As the Aurora traveled through space, Elias recorded his final log. "Humanity has survived, and we have won. Our ingenuity, courage, and adaptability have proven that no challenge is insurmountable. But we have also seen ourselves in the starkest light, what we can do when pushed to the edge. Let this knowledge guide us, not corrupt us. Let us build, learn, and explore, knowing that we are capable of anything. And let the galaxy remember, humans endure, humans adapt, and humans survive. That is who we are. That is our legacy." The stars stretched endlessly beyond the observation deck. Humanity had proven itself in the harshest of tests. The aliens had retreated, the solar system was safe, and humans had survived against impossible odds. And yet the victory was quiet, thoughtful, and sober. Humans had won not just through strength but through ingenuity, unpredictability, and courage. They had faced fear, embraced risk, and confronted the moral weight of their actions. And in doing so, they had become something greater than any enemy could predict. Humans who were clever, resilient, and aware of both their power and their responsibility. Elias and Mara stood side by side looking out at the stars. "We've changed the universe's perception of humanity," Mara said. Elias nodded. "Yes, and we've changed ourselves in the process. The galaxy will fear and respect us, but we must also respect ourselves and what we are capable of." The war had ended. Humanity had won, but humans would never forget the lessons, the cost, or the reflection that came with their triumph. They had survived against all odds, proven their ingenuity, and shown the universe that humanity could never be underestimated. The stars were silent witnesses to the human journey. Brilliant, clever, and resilient, humanity had carved its place in the galaxy. The victory was theirs. Yes, but the lessons, the moral weight, and the reflection on what it truly meant to survive would endure far longer than the battle itself. And as Elias looked at the stars, he knew one truth above all: humanity had survived, and the universe had seen the full extent of what humans could do. They would rebuild, explore, and endure. And nothing, not even the darkest threats of the galaxy, would ever forget the strength, ingenuity, and spirit of humanity.